Salton Sea was designated a state park back in the 50s. The landscape and recreation there looked a lot different. Now California State Parks is reimagining life and recreation at the Salton Sea.
The wind comes first, always the wind. It moves across the desert floor of southeastern California, sweeping over cracked earth that crunches like broken glass underfoot. The sun hangs low, shadows stretch long across what looks, at first glance, like a beach. White sand, the shimmer of water in the distance, the bleached remains of something that might once have been a dock. Then you step closer, and you realize the sand is not sand. It is the powdered bones of millions of fish. The shoreline is a graveyard, and the water beyond it, vast and silent, is the most poisoned lake in America. This is the Salton Sea, roughly 400 square miles of standing water in the middle of the Sonoran Desert, less than a 3-hour drive east of San Diego. It stands as the largest lake by surface area in the state of California. It is older than most Americans realize, and it should not exist at all. To understand how it arrived here, you have to travel back to a single human mistake in the spring of 1905, in the dust of the Imperial Valley, where a young engineering company tried to outsmart the Colorado River and failed catastrophically. The California Development Company carried a simple ambition: bring Colorado River water west, across the desert, to irrigate one of the hottest, driest valleys in North America. Turn sand into farmland. The Alamo Canal had been carrying water into the Imperial Valley since 1901. Crops grew, towns rose. The desert briefly obeyed. Then the canal began to silt up. Engineers carved a temporary bypass, a quick fix, a shortcut directly off the Colorado River. They neglected to reinforce the headgates. They told themselves they would seal it shut in the dry season. The dry season never arrived. In the winter of 1905, record flooding on the Gila River roared into the Colorado, and the Colorado roared through the gap. The entire river, the river that carved the Grand Canyon, abandoned its bed and turned north. It poured into a dry basin called the Salton Sink, a depression more than 200 feet below sea level, and it kept pouring. For nearly 2 full years, it ran uncontrolled. Engineers attempted to plug the breach with pilings, with sandbags, with brush, with anything they could throw at it. The river swept it all aside. In the end, only the Southern Pacific Railroad possessed the resources to win. Trainload after trainload of rock and gravel tumbled into the gap week after week, until at last, in February of 1907, the Colorado returned to its old channel. What it left behind was a sea, 400 square miles of new water, an accident, a wound in the desert that refused to heal. For decades, no one quite knew what to do with it. The 1920s and 1930s passed in a haze of indifference. Small fishing shacks dotted the shore. The lake stood as a curiosity, not a resource. Its surface rested 236 feet below sea level, in a basin so deep that only the floor of Death Valley descends lower. And there it remained, fed not by rain, not by rivers, but by the runoff of irrigation, ditches draining the surrounding farms. Then came the 1950s, and for one brief, strange decade, the accident transformed into a paradise. California was booming, Los Angeles was rising, and someone studied this enormous body of water in the middle of the desert and glimpsed the future. Developers descended. The California Department of Fish and Game stocked the lake with corvina, sargo, and Gulf croaker. The fish thrived. Anglers arrived by the thousands. They called it the Salton Riviera. They built the North Shore Beach and Yacht Club, all clean modernist lines and turquoise trim. Speedboats carved white wakes across the water. Frank Sinatra came. Desi Arnaz came. The Beach Boys played. At the peak of its popularity, the Salton Sea drew more visitors per year than Yosemite National Park. The brochures called it a miracle in the desert. Realtors sold lots sight unseen to retirees in Chicago, in Detroit, in Cleveland. Streets were paved on the empty playa, fire hydrants installed for houses that would never be built. The American dream projected onto a saltwater mirage. But the Salton Sea is what scientists call an endorheic lake. It has no outlet. No river carries its water onward to the ocean. The only way water leaves is by evaporating into the desert air. And when water evaporates, the salt stays behind. The fertilizers stay behind. The pesticides stay behind. Every drop of agricultural runoff from the Imperial and Coachella valleys, every chemical applied to every field, eventually settles into the bottom of that basin and remains there forever. The Riviera was rising on a slow chemical concentration that no one wanted to see. The reckoning began in 1976. Tropical storm. Kathleen tore through the region, raising the lake level several feet in a matter of days, drowning the beachfront homes, flooding the yacht club, leaving the marinas submerged or stranded. The water receded eventually. The damage did not. Insurance companies pulled out. Buyers vanished. And then the salt began to win. By the late 1970s, salinity in the Salton Sea had climbed past that of the Pacific Ocean. By the 1980s, it had passed it significantly. Today, the water is more than 50% saltier than the ocean. Saltier than most marine fish can tolerate. Saltier than most living things can endure. The die-offs began. In 1994, millions of tilapia, fish that had thrived for decades, suddenly suffocated, their bodies washed up in windrows along the shore, drifts of silver that rotted in the 120-degree sun. In 1996, hundreds of endangered brown pelicans perished, struck down by Newcastle disease, in waters too foul to sustain them. Then came 1999, the worst year in the sea's modern history. An estimated 8 million fish died in a single event. 8 million. Picture every fish in every aquarium in every American living room. Picture them all dead on one shoreline in one summer. That same year, 14,000 eared grebes, migratory water birds passing through on the Pacific Flyway, perished here as well. And still, the runoff kept coming. Roughly 1.3 million acre-feet of agricultural drainage water flowed into the Salton Sea every year, carrying with it the residues of an entire industrial farming economy. Selenium, arsenic, phosphorus, decades of accumulated chemistry, locked into a basin with no exit. The lake had become a closed circuit of poison. And then, in 2003, the people of California signed a document that would seal its fate. The Quantification Settlement Agreement was, on paper, a sensible compromise. San Diego needed water. The Imperial Valley held water rights older than the city itself. Under the agreement, up to 200,000 acre-feet of Colorado River water per year would be transferred from Imperial Valley farms to San Diego's growing population. Farmers would receive payment. Cities would be served. But that water had been the lifeline of the Salton Sea. Take it away, and the lake would begin to die. The drafters of the agreement understood this. They built in a 15-year mitigation period. Extra water would continue to flow into the sea, buying time. Time for the state to develop a real restoration plan. Time for science to catch up. Time, they assumed, for someone to figure out what to do. That clock began ticking in 2003. It ran out in 2017, and almost nothing had been done. What happened next is what scientists in the region simply call the cliff. The the lake began to recede with terrifying speed. Mile after mile of formerly submerged lake bed emerged into the sun. The locals coined a word for this exposed ground: playa, a Spanish word, originally beach, but there is nothing beach-like about it. The playa is a fine, chemically saturated dust, a century of pesticide residue, agricultural runoff, heavy metals, and pulverized organic decay baked into a crust that crumbles at the touch of wind. And the wind in the Imperial Valley almost never stops. When the dust rises, it rises in clouds visible from satellites. PM10 particulate matter, fine enough to lodge deep in human lungs, regularly exceeds federal health standards in the surrounding towns. Imperial County now suffers some of the worst air quality in the United States. Worse than Los Angeles, worse than Houston, worse at times than Beijing, and the children pay first. In the small communities around the Salton Sea, towns like Bombay Beach, Nyland, Westmoreland, and Calipatria, more than 20% of children suffer from asthma. The national rate sits at less than 10%. In some neighborhoods, the figure climbs higher still. Pediatricians in El Centro and Brawley describe waiting rooms full of children clutching inhalers, children who have never breathed air that did not taste faintly of metal and decay. Hydrogen sulfide gas, the smell of rotten eggs, drifts across the lake on summer evenings as decomposing organic matter releases sulfides from the lake bed. The South Coast Air Quality Management District has logged repeated events of dangerous concentrations, reaching as far as the Coachella Valley, more than 40 miles north. Tourists in Palm Springs sometimes wake to the stench of the dying sea. By 2030, without significant intervention, the exposed playa is projected to cover roughly 150 square miles. That is an area larger than the city of Denver. 150 square miles of toxic dust, lifting into the air, blowing west toward San Diego, north toward Los Angeles, settling onto crops, onto schoolyards, onto lungs. And yet, in the middle of this slow catastrophe, beneath the cracked floor of the dying lake, something else is stirring, something that may yet change everything. The Salton Sea sits directly atop the San Andreas Fault, in a geological feature called the Salton Trough. This ranks among the most active tectonic zones in North America, where the Pacific Plate is slowly pulling away from the North American Plate, opening the crust like a wound. And from that wound, deep beneath the lake bed, rises superheated brine, water at temperatures above 500 degrees Fahrenheit, saturated with dissolved minerals from miles below the surface. Geothermal power plants have operated along the southern shore for decades, drawing energy from this heat. But in recent years, geologists from the United States Geological Survey have confirmed that those brines contain something else: lithium, the light silver-white metal that powers every electric vehicle, every laptop, every smartphone in America. The Department of Energy estimates that the lithium dissolved in the Salton Sea geothermal field could supply roughly 40% of current United States demand. Some industry projections climb higher. Companies including Controlled Thermal Resources have begun building extraction facilities. State officials have rebranded the region. They call it Lithium Valley. And here is the contradiction at the center of everything. The dying lake, the toxic playa, the poisoned air over Imperial County may rest on top of one of the most strategically valuable mineral deposits in the United States. A lake created by accident in 1905, abandoned by tourism, abandoned by agriculture, abandoned by Sacramento, may become essential to the American transition away from fossil fuels. Whether the wealth beneath will save the people above is another question entirely. In 2021, Governor Gavin Newsom signed an executive order accelerating restoration efforts. The 10-year Salton Sea management program continues, building shallow wetlands along the receding shoreline, suppressing dust where it can, restoring habitat for the migratory birds that still, against all reason, return each winter. Progress crawls. Funding is contested. The lake continues to shrink. As of 2024, it has lost roughly 60% of its volume from its peak. The North Shore Beach and Yacht Club still stands, partially restored as a community center. Photographs of its ruins, taken by the band Linkin Park for their 2007 album, hang in galleries from Los Angeles to New York. The image has become shorthand for the American century itself. The boom, the abandonment, the slow return of the desert. But the Salton Sea is not finished. It remains the largest lake in California. It still shelters, on its better days, more than 400 species of birds along the Pacific Flyway. It is still, against everything, alive. Stand on its eastern shore at sunset. The wind eases. The water turns the color of beaten copper. Somewhere out in the shallows, a great blue heron lifts off and crosses the sky, slow and ancient and impossibly graceful. The salt crunches underfoot. The air tastes of sulfur and dust. And something older still. A century ago, men in suits drew lines on maps and told the Colorado River where to flow. The river laughed and went somewhere else. What it left behind was not a mistake. Not exactly. It was a mirror, held up to a country that believed it could engineer the desert, sell the desert, drink the desert dry, and walk away clean. The Salton Sea is still here, still watching, still waiting to see what we will do next.